Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at the Night Cage, Shrieking Hollow, which is brought to you by Smirk and Dagger Games. It's for 1 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and games usually run about 40 to 60 minutes. You awake in the dark with nothing but a candle, and wait, have you done this before? The deja vu is less troubling than the change it implies. Was the ground always this unstable around you? When the tunnels crumbled into pits, did they always scream? Why does it feel like those screams are getting closer? The Shrieking Hollow is an expansion that adds a new threat and a new space to explore within the Night Cage. A copy of the Night Cage base game is required to play. Pits now connect prisoners to the Hollow, where the Other lies in wait. Over the course of play, the Other will rise up out of the Hollow and attack the prisoners, destroying any part of the maze it encounters. If the prisoners are brave, they can leap into a pit and fall to the bottom of the Hollow, where the dim light of their candles will hold its advance, temporarily. However, they can't hold it back forever, and prisoners that stay too close to the Other will be attacked when it lurches toward the flickering light that it despises. So, the Night Cage is one of my go-to games. I absolutely love this cooperative play and the puzzly aspects of it. So, this new expansion adds so much more dread, so much more things to deal with. Well, the Other particularly, as he comes up out of the pit. Now, also, this preview is going to be just really focusing on this new expansion. And if you want to know more about how the game plays and how you work turn by turn, there's some great videos out there already, as well as our original preview that we did for the base game of Night Cage. Now, just a quick, simple look at what you're doing on your turn is the fact that you are in this pit, you have no idea why you're here, and you just have a single lit candle. So every time you move around the maze, you'll only be able to light up orthogonally to the directions that your path leads to. And as you move away from crumbling paths, they turn into pits, or if you move away where the light no longer reaches that particular part of the path, it just disappears. So it's this really interesting mix of moving around this map and puzzling out what you need to do in order to find keys. Every player needs a key, and then you'll need to find the exit to win the game. So what's new? Well, first and foremost, we have the new board that you're going to be adding on, which is the Hollow. And at the bottom of the Hollow is the Other. He is a 3-piece monster, so when he fully extends, he will fully crawl up this Hollow into the main board and attack the players moving across it. And he does lock on to a single player when he first comes up. Really some fun stuff and a lot of tense moments around the Other as he moves up this particular path onto the main board. Now, you're also going to get a series of new tiles, obviously. You have a series of T and crossroad tiles that are crumble tiles. And that'll be clear in a minute why there's more crumble tiles than there were before. And you have the Shrieks, which is kind of the key monster that ties directly into the Other. And we'll look at those as well as there are a series of new boss level monsters, which you probably want to wait to put into play until you get familiar with how the Hollow plays and how the Other encroaches and comes upon the players and how you deal with him. So let's jump into what it looks like when he starts to move out of the Hollow. So as the Other moves, he consumes 2 areas of the board, and then his body starts to follow. So as he moves up the Hollow, the rest of him will follow. And the way that triggers is that out on the main board, as soon as a pit is formed, moving off of it or moving through a crumbling tile, something like that, he will trigger and move. Now, there's one way to prevent him from doing that. If you were to fall through the pit and land in an area above him, he does diminish from that light. It does pull away from that light, at least temporarily. There is an exception here, of course there is, but he will be kept at bay as long as we have a player in the Hollow that will stop him from moving by having a lit candle. Now, when you create those pits, you fall straight into the Hollow. And you could have multiple people in the Hollow, but the first time you fall in, you're going to fall to the bottommost level, and then the next player will go to the next level, and so forth. So those different types of movements into the Hollow is really going to help you. You want to keep him at bay as long as possible. Now, there are Shrieks, new monsters that are going to come out. And originally there were 4, but now there's 6, so you'll see 4 printed on the player board, but you'll see that there's 6 of these now, and when the 3rd one emerges, every time a 3rd one comes out, then he triggers full-on force. The screams from the Shrieks just beg him on, just begging him to come to the board and attack the players. So regardless if you have lit candles in the Hollow, he's moving forward. So when players do fall into the hollow, you're going to be creating tile paths just like you do on the main board. Whatever you can see with your candle, you'll be pulling tiles and putting them out. Now, there are 3 ways you can voluntarily leave, and there are 3 ways you can be forced out of the hollow. So first, you can crawl all the way back out to the top to get back to the main board. You can create another pit within the hollow and fall back to the main board. Or you can draw a key tile, and once you move onto the key, collect your key, you move back to the main board, just you, the player. Now, you can be forced out. So if he smothers the players because he's been called or beckoned by the shrieks, he will just cover over the player. The lights will go out, and that player will then fall back to the main board. But if one player on the main board picks up a key, all players in the hollow are ejected back to the main board. All are still have their lights lit though, which is nice. And then finally, when that 3rd shriek tile is drawn, then all players are ejected out of the hollow, putting them back to the main board. Their lights will still be lit though, unless you were smothered by the other on the way out as this was happening. But you'll be put back on the main board. You'll have to draw new tiles though to place out as you land back here. Obviously, that's another way you're gonna be burning through these tiles even faster. So it just clears a path for him to get out of the hollow. So the other has reached the top of the hollow, getting ready to emerge on the main board. And when he does, whoever the next player is will determine his line of sight, basically. So you'll grab him out of the hollow and place him. So green is going to be our next player. So it's going to align with him on this board. And every turn, he'll move out 2 spaces. So you have some time to try to get out of the way, because anything below him you're not going to hit. And he's only going to come out so far and then hang out here for a turn before he goes back to the hollow. So you do have some decisions to make, and you hope you have nerve in hand so you can move further than you normally would on a turn. So in this particular example, you can see that green has a choice to try to start to get out of the way, but red is going to get smothered. So after green moves, the other will move out and red will take the hit. He's going to go lights out. You'll have to discard 3 tiles, and he'll end up at the bottom of the hollow on a tile. So you'll draw another tile for where he lands and so forth. So the other does smother as he comes out potentially. So you hope you've planned well enough to where he emerges on the board, but it's going to happen and you will fall to the bottom of the hollow. But again, just like in the base game, as soon as another player becomes adjacent to you, you can relight your candle, which is a nice aspect for sure, but it does cause you to discard tiles when he smothers. It's not over by any means, but there is some interesting things that happen as he moves across the board. Now he'll move across the board to his full body extent, and there's some variations based on the 4-player versus 5-player game about how far he moves and so forth. But he will just be moving ever closer to the other end. And then once he reaches that final end of the board, he will just collapse again back to the bottom of the hollow. Now, just a little bit closer look at the shrieks, because it's important. When you're placing tiles and you draw a shriek, you place it just like you would any normal tile. You can't move on it and you can't move through it, which is unfortunate because the shrieks will stay in play until that 3rd shriek is drawn. Once the 3rd shriek is drawn, then the others 2 flip over to pits, and the one that you drew just gets discarded. But until that happens, they act as obstacles across the board. And thematically, they just stay lit because their screams are so loud that they just have a permanent spot on the board, which is unfortunate for you for sure. So they definitely act as a herald for the other. So that's really the basics of play around this new expansion, and just like any movement on the board, the other will trigger monsters to fire. So keep that in mind as you have them out and you try to move away, hopefully, so they're no longer lit. So lots of interesting tactics around the other and how you best puzzle out what to do. You know, again, in the end, it's about how you best work together to find those keys, find the exit, and get out. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here from the new expansion has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now that said, I've been a longtime fan of the Night Cage, and adding in this new expansion, I don't think I'll play without it ever again, but adding in the other monsters is going to be something else for sure. I haven't tried any of the new big monsters, the new boss monsters that they provided, as well as these new Night Terror cards. It's going to add a whole nother level to the game for sure, giving these a closer look. But definitely keep an eye on the campaign about all those new things coming. And you know what? The other does provide a lot of tension. And if you like cooperative games, this might really work for you. And especially when we play this game by candlelight, it's a lot of fun. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.